Okay, so what do we want to do in this example is we want to scan a string and count the number of occurrences of a certain letter, right? Now it's hard-coded as M, but in fact, I can generalize it to make it generic, right? Oh, I should just replace everything here. So, and also, by the way, here we are passing this this string as a constant here, which, for example, programming at McMaster is fun. Hopefully you see it as the case. But simply I need to loop through that string and count the number of occurrences of a certain letter, M in that case, right? And then print it. So what should I do? First of all, we have seen the traversal. Is that large enough? So we have seen the traversal of a string. So I can simply write a for loop or a while loop, it doesn't matter. So I define a counter here, already defined for UI equals 0. Then I have a for I from 0. My termination condition, which we know it's text I does not equal my null character. And then I plus plus. And then, well, I start from the first character and I scan. What should I do? What should I be checking for? Yeah. Great, thank you. So I have an if condition that checks if text I, which is the element I'm in right now, if it's equal M, or text I equal M. And to guard against what we discussed before, it might be better, in fact, to put the M here, right? Do you recall that? It might not read very nice, but it's a good trick to make sure you don't have this error that we said will not cause a compilation problem, right? And then if that's the case, what should I do? So I'm scanning, stopping at a certain character. If it's equal M or M capital, what should I do? Yeah, go ahead. Increase my counter by 1. Good. And then I'm done, right? So yeah, this is what I'm looking for, right? Just as simple as this. So let's see if that's the case. So I run. Well, I guess copying again causes this problem for quotes. So let's just fix it. And rerun again. Oh yeah, it's in the print as well. Okay, so it gives us 4. Is 4 is the answer? I have MM, that's 2, MM, that's 2, so it's 4. Good. So I have done it functionally correct, but it's not the best way of doing things, right? So can you highlight some of that problems we might have here? And these are not functional problems, more like good coding, practicing. Yeah, I'm hard coding my string to operate on. Oh, you said, well, now I give 2 things. So you said you're hard coding M, right? So which is the character you're looking for. That's one thing, which means this program only works for the M. If you want really to count the occurrences of another character, well, you have to hard code modify your code. So you hard code for M, but I also said another thing that is bad, which is hard coding your input string itself, which is text, right? Because it doesn't work for any string. It only works for programming at McMaster. It's fun. What else? For example, if I want to generalize more, here I'm counting M whether it's capital or small. But use cases can be different, right? So I can really say, as a user of your function, do I want to count only that character in a small format or in a capital format? And one other thing is that also, in a sense, doing it that way is also might not be the best way of doing it, because operating on strings, there are so many times where you will need to deal with characters, either in their small format or capital format, right? So maybe instead of hard coding this, I can write my own function, right? That either, well, you might have seen this in Python, do to too small or too upper, right? So you write utility function. Like this concept of utility functions we discussed also on Wednesday, is that if there is something that is very common, what you can do, something like swap, for example, we have discussed before, also operating or detecting small or big characters, you can write it as a function, then use it. And takes us to this concept as well of utility. The whole function itself shouldn't be the main, right? Well, now I want to count a certain, well, occurrences of a certain character in a string. This can be a function. It shouldn't be your own main. In the main, well, you use it. Why that's the case? Because this function you can give to another user and put the function, plug it in a completely different program, and it should be okay. So the first thing we could do now is we could separate this whole coding into a function, and let's call it occurrences. And if I'm writing this function, let's think about it. What should I return? What type I should return? Integer, right? Because here I'm counting numbers and I defined counter as integer, right? So I should return int. And then I call something representative, so maybe occurrences. And then what should I pass? This function operates on what? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so great. It operates on the array. So maybe call it text in that case. And character, the one that you want to count, right? So this is also, well, input, might call it input character or anything, or scan, doesn't matter. Great. And then what should I do inside the function itself? I will do something very similar. So I will, but right now my text is not hard coded. And maybe take all that code and put it here. So I have my index as I have my counter, I have text to operate on, it's still the same thing. And here, instead of having m, what should I change? Yeah, in this case, it's going to be your input. Well, maybe just give it a reasonable name, input character. And also here, well, let's continue this and see what happens. Well, it ended up being the same thing now. So what should I do? Yeah. What if the user inputted it in the other way around? Right? So you are correct. Generally, if the user inputted in I don't recall which one comes first, the smaller one comes first, right? So that means if the user input the input character in a small format, like A, for example, if you add 26, it gives you A capital, right? But what if the user inputted the capital one? In that case, you want also to account for the smaller one, right? So is there a way to check? To subtract, exactly, thank you. So the idea here is the following. So I need some logic here that first of all detects whether this is a small character or an upper character for the case of an alphabetical character, right? How can I get this? Simply from the ASCII table. I know that small characters start from A small to Z small from a certain range. and the same thing for the capital ones. And if that's the case, I can transform. But then instead of hard coding all of this in one place, I can really write some utility functions. For example, assume that I'm abstracting everything right now. So I'm saying if, assume I have a function that is called is upper, and this is upper is taking my input character, which means this character is basically the big character with a capital one. In that case, I know that I should define, as your friend suggested, maybe here I define another character called, what should I call it? Input character other form. This is a very long thing. Let's just give it a very bad name now, input character 2. So in that case, I would say input character 2 will equal what? Based on your friend's suggestion, here we can, I believe, use your solution, but either by subtracting or adding, which is, I know that now it's a capital, I want to transform it into small, so I should subtract, right? So I can write it directly by subtracting 26, or I might be writing something like another utility function called to small and pass into it the input character, right? And then else, if then is small, and then input character. I know that now my input character is the small format, then the other one I should check for should be to upper. And then I say input character. So I don't know if you see what I'm saying right now, but the idea is if your input character here is in the upper format, your other one should be in the small format. If your input character is in the small, your other one should be in the upper format. And well, those are not implemented yet. Please go ahead. That's also another possibility, which means, well, let me think. Yeah, but you'll not be counting the problem is that the string might contain the upper ones. So those will be skipped. Unless you need to convert your string fully into smaller. That's also another possibility. I believe this is what you're suggesting, right? But there is a problem with this right now, which is if your string is containing capital letters, they will not be counted. Unless, Great. Yeah, all of this, that's good. But the problem is that now your function will only be counting the small letters into the string, correct? No, when you do this comparison, because they have different, so let me go back to the original loop. So if you compare only like this, for example, so this comparison will not be true if the text I is capital, while Sure. So I guess your point is that input character will always be small. Great. So I end up in this line with input character always small. What I'm saying is that this will not work for the case where text I is that letter but in capital format, because this condition now would be false. Correct? One possibility to do this, which is possible, is in fact also process your input string to convert every single character into a small format, and hence you can only do the condition one, which is another solution. That's a correct one. Great. So, but I guess the purpose of this thing is also to think of these utility things, because you guys need to think of how to implement them yourself. But the idea is I ended up with two versions of the letter, if it's basically upper or smaller. By the way, what if it's a digit, 10, for example? What would happen? Or 1. What would, because 10 is not a valid character. So 1 or 2 or 9. In that case, is upper will be false, or is small will be false. So it will not apply to any of this, and you will only have one version. Yeah. An excellent point. That's correct. So this to avoid the case for if it's not an alphabetical character. Yeah, great. Thank you. So all good. So we didn't say how to implement these things, but assuming that they are there, now I can rely on input character and input character 2, knowing that basically if they are either equal in case of non-alphabetical character, or they are the smaller and the upper version in case of an alphabetical character, right? And in that case, I had count at the end once I finished the loop. What should I do? What should I do? Yeah, what do you think? To just return, because remember, functions, you can do whatever you want inside the function. Nothing will reflect unless you really return the value that you're interested in. And this one is returning an int. So we are returning the counter value. If I want to use this function inside my main, what should I simply do? Define a variable and call the function and pass to it the array as well as my character, which in this case it can be m if I want, right? If we try to run this will not work because we don't have yet the too small and the too upper and is upper and is small. But I can simply write something quick here. So say void is upper, and then I'm taking a character. Can someone quickly tell me the range of these things? Because well, in fact, we can do something different. We can say if input is, let me see, it's larger than or equal to A, and the input smaller than or equal to Z, in that case, it's an alphabetical letter, alphabetical character, and it is upper. So, well, in fact, here I should return int because there is no Boolean. What should I return if that's the case? What do you think? If it's between A and Z smaller, that means it's, in fact, well, I should have done the other way around because here we're checking for is upper. So what should I do right now? Eventually, I should return true, right? Yeah, 1. But because we don't have Boolean in C, so I should return 1. Again, what I'm doing right now is that if my input character is between this range, it's a capital alphabetical character, so I return 1. And I do the same thing exactly for my is small. Just doing that. Great. And then for the time being, I can write 2 upper and 2 smaller, but these ones would be void. So, well, let's assume that I know definitely that my character, that is the input, is a small format, so I don't need to check for that. What can I do? Well, that's in fact wrong, because if I do 2 upper, what should I write here? Should return what? Should return a character, right? That is in the upper format. And I should return the input character itself. To transform from smaller to upper, what should I do? Please, Ben. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. So to transform from small, who comes first in the ASCII table? I don't remember, yeah. The lowercase, which means in that case, I should add 26. Is it 26, the number we should add? 27, I don't remember. Let's assume it's 26 and we'll try our odds here. And for the too small, I should just subtract, right? So in fact, what we have done in this example, we are writing our very small library of utility functions operating on strings. And you can really expand on those, right? I don't know if this is going to work, so let's try. But before we try it, like, is the logic clear? I just abstracted, yeah, just give me a second. So I just abstracted the concept by defining the utility functions to make sure that whether the user input small or capital, it doesn't really matter. I can convert it to both in case of an alphabetical character, and I do my checking in a function separately. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, exactly. So what I have done here is I have the main, and then I have the function implementation or the function body after the main. But if the compiler goes into a sequential order, so if I start from here, the compiler will complain. It will say, here you have a function called occurrences, it's not even defined. So what you should do is you should have the prototype before the main to be able to use it. And the same thing applies for all your functions. This is int is upper and is taking a character. And the same thing for a small. And this one is returning character. It's 2 upper. And this one is too small. Good, and let's just try and see what do we have. You should definitely have errors at the beginning. So here, printf, yeah, we no longer have counter variable. And this tells us also some lesson about the scope, right? So what is the error we are getting here? Inside the main, I defined a variable called count. I'm using counter here, but counter is a local variable of the function occurrences. So it cannot be used in another function, right? Because of the scope. So in this case, you should be just count, right? And then I just run and let's see if we have other errors. Well, we don't, but we got 2. While in fact we should get 4. So what is the problem then? Are we doing something wrong here? I guess what we should do is we should try to print character 1 and character 2. So input 1 equal. And then this is %C, input 2 equal %C, and this is input character and input character 2. And let's see what do we get. Just a new line here. To see if we have done the transformation correctly or wrong, right? So let's see. Did I do something wrong? Character, input character. This should be good. Oh, printf. Okay, as usual. Okay, so wow, it's not 26. It should be 27. Yeah, there is a number. I don't remember the exact number. Let's try 27 as the last trial, and then if not, then you guys know what should be the number, and we have the big idea, so it should be okay. Well, we got R. Well, LMNS. Oh, R. Are we moving in the other order? Well, whatever. So I guess we should know what is the, well, you know what? 32. Okay. By the way, you're not supposed to, or you're not assumed to know these things. If you have something related to the ASCII manipulation, it will be given to you in the exam, okay? And you can just look it up on the internet. Information is already available. Yeah, so now we got it, M and M, great, and we got 4, right? So I guess we achieved our mission successfully. So I'm done with the lecture, but I can take questions. So thanks everyone, and please come by if you have questions. And I will post the example on Avenue as well with the lecture, okay?